This root tastes like a fruit. It stores sweetness underground, but never spikes your blood. Plant it once and harvest forever from the same rhizomes. For over 1,000 years, it fed Andean farmers without asking permission from seed companies or sugar refineries. Then the world chose a different kind of sweet. We abandoned it not because it lacked power, but because that power could not be bottled, taxed, and shipped across oceans. A sweetness that heals instead of harms, that grows back without chains, that refuses the logic of plantation and mill. This cannot be allowed to thrive. This is the story of the root that carries water in the desert, that painted itself on Nazca pottery, and still waits in terraced fields while our bodies collapse under refined sugar. Welcome to Ancestral Harvest. If what grows in these harvests matters to you, the simplest act of preservation is this: subscribe, ring the bell, and share this knowledge with those who hunger for what we buried. The harvest begins in the cloud forests of the central Andes, sometime before the Inca carved their first stone. A root grows beneath the soil of sloping valleys between 1,800 and 2,800 meters. The Quechua people call it yacón or yacón, the water one. The name tells you everything. Bite into it raw, and juice floods your mouth. Crisp like jicama, faintly floral, mildly sweet. It is 70% water by weight. In a landscape where every calorie must be coaxed from thin air and rocky slopes, the yacón is an anomaly. It is the fruit that grows like a tuber, the refreshment that stores itself underground. The plant stands tall, 2 meters high, crowned with small yellow sunflowers late in the season. But the treasure hides below. Knobby storage roots, some the size of a fist, others as long as a forearm, pear-shaped and golden. A single plant produces 5 to 20 roots, each one swollen with a kind of sweetness the body cannot break. The Inca did not write in letters, but they wrote in thread and clay. Pre-Inca cultures painted yacón on pottery meant for ceremony. Nazca textiles show the yacón root woven into ritual designs. Pottery from 500 to 1200 CE depicts farmers holding the roots like offerings. Spanish chroniclers arriving in the 1600s list yacón among the native crops of the highlands. One Jesuit, Bernabe Cobo, writes that the root stays fresh for over 20 days at sea. As provisions rotted in shipholds, yacón held its water and structure, a rare fresh food that could endure weeks at sea. It became travelers' food, the root that did not rot when everything else did. But yacón occupies a strange place in the Andean food system. It is not a staple like potato or quinoa. It is refreshment, medicine, ritual. Farmers peel it in the fields and eat it as a snack. Mothers grate it and press out the juice for children on hot days. Healers prescribe it to elders whose blood runs too sweet, whose bodies no longer listen to food. They do not know the chemistry, but they know the result. The sugar-sick grow stronger, digestion improves, energy returns. Yacón is planted in small plots, mixed with maize, beans, and other root crops. It does not demand the best soil or the flattest land. It tolerates slopes, moderate cold, and seasonal drought. Once you have rhizomes, you replant them each season and the roots return. No seed to buy, no dependency. Just the knowledge of when to dig and when to let the plant rest. For Andean farmers, this is wealth, not gold, not silver. Water stored as sweetness, growing where little else will. Before we go further, if stories like this matter to you, if you believe this knowledge should survive, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. Every person who joins this harvest helps ensure these crops are not forgotten again. Now back to the root that refused to become sugar. Then the Spanish arrive, and they bring a different kind of sweet. Sugar cane, a grass that loves heat, endless water, and the labor of enslaved hands. It is planted in stolen Caribbean and coastal lands. It is boiled, refined, crystallized, and shipped back to Europe in barrels. It fuels empires. It becomes currency. Yacón, meanwhile, cannot do any of this. It will not grow in monoculture. It spoils too quickly for long voyages unless eaten fresh. Its sweetness is gentle, not explosive. And most damning of all, it cannot be refined into a white powder that dissolves into tea and stores for years in warehouses. So yacón stays in the hills. It remains a peasant crop, a medicine, a local refreshment. Colonial record keepers mention it, then move on. The money is in cane, wheat, potatoes. Crops that can be taxed, tithed, and sold. Yacón slips into the category of interesting but irrelevant. By the 19th and 20th centuries, the world is drowning in sugar. Cane and beet sugar flood global markets. Sugar becomes the cheapest source of calories on Earth and also the most destructive. Diabetes, obesity, tooth decay, metabolic collapse. The human body, built for occasional fruit and honey, is now submerged in endless glucose. And in the Andes, yacón continues to grow quietly. Farmers still plant it. They still give it to diabetic relatives. They still juice it for their children. But no government funds research. No university studies its yield. No company tries to breed better varieties. It is invisible to the institutions that shape what the world eats. Then, in the late 20th century, scientists finally looked. They discovered what Andean grandmothers had known. Yacón stores its carbohydrates not as starch but as fructooligosaccharides, often abbreviated FOS. These are chains of fructose molecules linked in a way human enzymes cannot break. This means the sweetness passes through the stomach undigested and reaches the colon intact. There, beneficial bacteria, bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, devour it. They multiply. They produce short-chain fatty acids that lower inflammation, improve mineral absorption, and protect against colon disease. Studies in guinea pigs show that yacón-fed animals have healthier guts, denser bones, and better immune markers. Small human trials followed. Diabetics who ate yacón syrup daily reported lower fasting glucose. Overweight adults lost waist circumference, and triglycerides dropped. The science confirms the folk medicine, a root that tastes sweet but does not feed your blood sugar. Instead, it feeds the invisible forest of life in your intestines. Field trials would later confirm what farmers already knew. Yacón yields rivaled or exceeded potato in many climates, producing up to 47 tons per hectare in European tests, all without irrigation or heavy fertilizers. By the 2000s, yacón appeared in health food stores in Japan, New Zealand, Brazil, and Europe. It was marketed as diabetic-friendly syrup, as a prebiotic supplement, and as the next superfood. Chefs rediscovered it. They roast it until caramelized, puree it into soups, and slice it raw into salads. It has a second life, this time as a wellness commodity. But something is missing. The people who saved the crop, who carried it through centuries of colonial neglect, rarely benefit. The yacón syrups sold in Tokyo and Los Angeles are often produced by corporations who source bulk roots cheaply and capture the value downstream. Andean farmers remain invisible. The crop is celebrated, but not the hands that planted it or the knowledge systems that preserved it. And yacón still refuses industrial logic. The roots are irregular, knobby, and difficult to clean. Mechanical potato harvesters lose half the crop or damage the tubers. Storage is a problem. High water content means spoilage within weeks unless refrigerated. Even worse, the fructooligosaccharides begin to break down after harvest, converting into simple sugars. The root gets sweeter over time, but loses its prebiotic power. This makes it terrible for global supply chains that demand months of shelf life. Yacón will not sit in a warehouse. It will not ship cheaply in bulk. It insists on being eaten close to where it grows or processed immediately into syrup or chips. This is why you will never see yacón in a supermarket the way you see potatoes. Not because it lacks nutrition or yield, but because it will not behave. And there is another problem. Yacón is easy to propagate, too easy. A farmer with 3 rhizomes can plant them, harvest roots for eating, and save new rhizomes for next season. Within 2 years, that farmer has enough material to share with neighbors. There is no proprietary seed, no patent, no annual purchase required. In a food system built on selling inputs, yacón is a problem. It enables independence. This is the same reason amaranth was banned by Spanish conquistadors. The same reason perennial beans were plowed under for annuals. The same reason mesquite forests were cleared for cattle. Crops that replant themselves, that spread through gift economies, that heal land and people without corporate mediation, these are threats, not to survival, but to profit. Now the climate is changing. The stable weather that built industrial agriculture is ending. Droughts intensify and rains become erratic. Andean farmers already know this. They have been adapting for millennia. Yacón is part of that adaptation. It grows on slopes where tractors cannot reach. It tolerates moderate drought, and it does not require flat, irrigated land. It enriches soil, supports beneficial fungi, and it needs no synthetic fertilizers when compost is available. Sugarcane and beet sugar require industrial monocultures, heavy water use, pesticides, and large refining infrastructure. Yacón asks only for a hillside, some rhizomes, and patience. It gives back sweetness that does not spike insulin, fiber that heals the gut, and roots that return every season. Pre-Inca peoples painted yacón on pottery meant for ceremony. It was part of the sacred geometry of survival, not gold, not monuments, but roots that held water and sweetness in a world defined by scarcity and altitude. Today, as oceans rise and aquifers drain, that knowledge returns. Permaculturists plant yacón in food forests. Diabetics grow it in backyards. Indigenous communities reclaim it as heritage, as medicine, as resistance to the sugar economy that nearly erased them. The root was never lost. It simply waited for us to remember that sweetness does not have to come from plantations, that food security does not require purchasing seed every spring, that some of the most powerful crops are the ones that grow back without asking. We did not abandon yacón because it failed. We abandoned it because it succeeded in ways the market could not measure. It fed people without creating dependency. It healed without prescriptions. It replanted without patents. These are not flaws. They are features of a food system designed for resilience, not extraction. The root still grows in Andean valleys, in New Zealand orchards, in Japanese test plots, wherever someone plants 3 rhizomes and watches 30 roots emerge the following year. That knowledge lives in the soil, in the quiet refusal of a plant to behave like a commodity. In every bite that tastes like fruit but grows like a tuber, that sweetens without spiking, that remembers what we forgot. If this harvest opened something in you, subscribe to Ancestral Harvest and turn on notifications. Share this story with someone who needs to know that another way is possible. Every like, every comment, every share is an act of preservation. Together, we keep these crops alive. The next harvest begins soon.